Welcome everyone to the field placement information session. My name is Danette Nearing-Guibord, and I'm the field placement coordinator and professor of the seminar class that is part of the field placement course. I've been doing this I'm in my 18th year, and prior to that, I spent 25 years working in the criminal justice field in Ottawa. I graduated from Carleton, and due to the field placement that I did at that time, I got my career started in the field. And so I know firsthand that field placement can really be life-changing in terms of getting your career started. So anyway, we'll go through to the next slide. Okay, so you need to submit an application in order to be considered. Usually we have about 150 to 200 students that apply for the field placement, and we only have between 80 and 90 students that are accepted a year. Now, I say 80 to 90 students. Normally it's 80 spots that I have available, but the last number of years I've been accepting 90 students. And sometimes we end up with 80 by the time September rolls around, but we also take from we have a wait list, and we take from the wait list. So that's why it fluctuates between 80 to 90 students. That is the link to submit your application online, and the deadline is May 1st to submit it. We won't accept any applications after May 1st, so you have plenty of time to get your application in, and if you have any questions, we'll answer them at the end, or you could always come in and see Jillian in our office. Okay, so over the years, the acceptance was always based on your CGPA, but we've decided the last few years that 40 of the students will be accepted based on your CGPA, and the other 40 students will be through a randomizer, so it's a lottery system. And last year, the cutoff for the CGPA was about 10.25, and I know that sounds high, but do not panic. As I said, we take students from the wait list, and if you don't get into the field placement, you can always come and see me, and I can help you to kind of navigate things and give you some connections to get your career started. Okay, so in our program, we take a holistic approach to the field placement. So it's not just placing you in the field and that's it. We have a seminar class, and we also have the work that you do in the criminal justice field. You need to get a passing grade in both of those sections. Each of them are weighted at 50%. And so you can't just push all of, I'll go and I'll do my placement, but I won't attend any classes or do any assignments. It doesn't work that way because it is an academic course. Okay, so the seminar class, it's a full year course, so it goes from September until April. I split the class of 80 students into two groups. So usually the first couple of classes, we have an orientation class and we do an ethics class, which is where we go through scenarios of things that can go wrong in placement, and to kind of how to go about working ethically in the field. And then after that, students are either in Group A or Group B. So you only have to attend 6 classes per term. Some of the lectures are both groups together, as I've mentioned. We also do a class on, I have career services that comes in to do a resume writing workshop, and they also do either a career planning workshop or an interview, how to do interviews effectively workshop. So it's great having that resource. The rest of the classes, I pick topics in criminal justice. So I do a class class on policing. I'll do one on the criminal justice system or youth justice or mental health issues. And I bring experts from the field into the class. And it really is an important part of the course because you get to hear from these guest speakers about how they got into the field and the work that they're doing. And they're also great resources to have. They will provide you with their emails so you can network with them. I also started doing the last couple of years of having a class on former students coming back to speak to the students about where they are, how they got into their careers. And I usually have a panel of them. I did one class virtually and one class in person, and it was an amazing group of students. And it just shows you what it takes to get work in the field, how they were successful in getting their career jobs. And they also give tips to you. Okay. Next one. Okay, so the academic portion of the class is worth 50%. I usually have 2 small assignments per term, and they all revolve around the field placement experience. So the work that you're doing in your particular organization. The final assignment is always a reflection paper, or last year I did a digital storytelling assignment where students could be creative. Some did PowerPoint presentations, some did podcasts, and they were very good. And then there's the attendance and participation. So, for every class that you come to, you get at least 1 point, and then there's some participation marks as well. And the value of coming to the class is to get an idea of what's out there in the field, what other people are doing, how do you get connected with the field. And if you're not sure what you want to do as a career, then this could really spark an interest, or it can really motivate you towards a certain path. Next one. So the agency work, it's not a paid placement. So it's unlike co-op, where co-op you do an extra year on your degree and you're actually paid for that work. This is not paid because you receive course credit for it. It becomes part of your GPA. So that's important to understand that. Now, we used to have placements with the government. I had about 30 type of placements within the government that were absolutely amazing. Students always got jobs from those placements. But since 2020, the government required all of their departments to pay their interns. And so a lot of departments stopped taking students, and then it also cut off us from having those as placement opportunities for students because our placements are unpaid. But I do have a lot of connections in the government, so I always provide students with those connections. The placement is 1 credit, so 8 hours a week at that you do at your placement agency. But you can also do a 2.0 credit, which is where you do 8 hours extra in the field. So it's a total of 16 hours a week. So if you think of it like putting aside 2 full days to go into your placement. So there's some placement organizations like criminal defense lawyers who will only take 16-hour-week students. So if you put 2 full days aside to go in there, then you only have 3 other courses to take if you're taking a full course load. And if you look at it that way, it's a little bit more manageable. Next slide. Okay, so the hours are arranged with your placement agency. So after you have your interview and your placement is confirmed, then you arrange your schedule with your organization. And most often, when you're selecting your other courses, you can say, okay, I've got these times, these days available, and most often that's okay with the organization. There's some organizations where they have specific dates and times that you have to go in. So those are all in the placement descriptions. And then there's other organizations like, say, a Boys and Girls Club or Christie Lake Kids, where their hours are in the evening, so you would put 2 evenings aside to go into those placements. There's also the distress center where you have to work 200 hours on the crisis lines, which is a requirement of that organization. They also have a requirement where you have to work certain overnight shifts with them. But that's all in the placement descriptions, and the distress center, I would say, is probably one of the best ones for anyone that's considering doing a place or going into the field as a police officer. Next one. Okay, so the placements are either frontline or they're research, or some can have a combination of some research with frontline work. Even working with a criminal defense lawyer, you're going to have some legal research that you'll have to do, and then the rest is all frontline work. Some of the examples of some of the placements. So I have about 65 placement organizations that you have to choose from. There's law offices, so prosecution and defense. I also have some family law lawyers, so if that's an area that you'd like to get into. Lots of youth programs, so Youth in Conflict or youth organizations like Boys and Girls Club. There's also victim services. I also have some research placements in the victims area. There's crime prevention organizations. And then again, I mentioned the Victimology Research Center is one of the research ones that I have. So again, those organizations are provided to you when you're accepted into the placement. Then you get to see where what type of organizations are and where you might like to choose to do your placement. And what the suggestion that I would have for you is that you look at the skills that you have and where you think you would like put aside that you might want to say go to law school. So there's I know a lot of students, they want to go to law school and they want to work with the criminal defense lawyer as their placement. But if you're really shy and you don't have great interpersonal skills, it might not be the best placement for you, because the students that they've had year over year have really embraced the opportunity and have really gone out and done work of the lawyer. They've gone into remand court to speak in front of the justice of the peace. And so if you want to go to law school, but you don't have those strong skills, then you might want to look at something else. Okay, but I'll walk you through that whole process after you've been accepted. Next slide. Okay, here's the timeline for acceptance. So the applications are due May 1st. Early May, we review the applications, and then early to mid-May, we email you with the results. So you'll get an email that you've been accepted and these are the next steps, or you didn't get accepted. If you didn't get accepted, not a big deal. Just message me, or you'll get an email that you're on the wait list. And don't panic if you get an email that you're on the wait list, because from experience, we've taken several times off of the wait list. So students will forget sometimes that they applied for placement and then decide they don't want to do it, or there's a variety of reasons that they'll drop out. So do not panic. This is a process. It can be a frustrating process when you're waiting to go through your interview, waiting to find out where you're going to do your placement. In some cases, the process has dragged into August for some students. Now, on my side, I know that I get all of the students' placements, so I know that you'll have a placement. From your side, you're panicking because you're not sure, am I going to have a placement? For some students, their placements are confirmed in May and June, and so they're well on their way. And others, you just have to wait. And so what I can say to you, if you're accepted, we just have to have a lot of communication. You have to be patient and know that you will get a placement by the time we start in September. So as I mentioned, your acceptance is confirmed mid-May. We have a Brightspace groups that we set up, and you have to go through. Now, I have to tell you that everybody thinks that they have a great resume. Not so. This is the most frustrating thing when I have to go through and correct your resume because from experience, in the early days of me doing this, I wouldn't even look at the resume. I would send it out to the placement agency, and then I would get emails back saying, this is the worst resume I've seen, or I don't want to take the student based off of their resume. So you need to have a really polished resume. And we provide the connections for career services. We urge you to go and look at their templates and take the time to put it together, because I'm telling you, it will make or break you getting jobs or getting placement opportunities. So really important. We have what are called our preference sheets. So when we send you out the descriptions of all the organizations, you fill this sheet out with your top 4 choices. And I'm not going to go into detail about that right now, but before we do that, this year I'm going to meet with every student individually. Just to talk to you a bit about, get a feeling of what you want to do career-wise, so that we have a better transition into September. I found the last couple of years that there were a lot of students just dropping it or not really taking it seriously. And really, you waste the time of the placement supervisors when they take the time to interview you. So I want to get a sense of how committed people are to the placement before we start in September. And then I will guide you through the preference form as well at that time. Early June is when I'm emailing students about their interviews. So we look at your top choice. I try to get everybody their top choice. It doesn't work that way because usually anybody that wants a criminal defense lawyer, most often I've had the most 27 that wanted criminal defense lawyers, and I got all 27 their placement choices. But you have to go to interviews, and sometimes they're competitive. Other students want the same criminal defense lawyer. Anyway, you will get a placement. If you don't get your top choice, I go to second choice, third choice, fourth choice. Okay, so that's how it works out. And in some cases, because certain organizations are more popular than others, we may have to go to a list of, if you don't get any of your top 4 choices, depending on what you choose. So I prep you for the interview, tell you everything that you need to know, and then placements are only confirmed after a successful interview. So most often you're going to an interview with, there's going to be maybe another student. I'm sending 2 students for maybe only 1 position. In some cases, we're competing with Ottawa U for positions. I have to say that we fare really well. We've got a good reputation in the field. So most of our students do get the placements that they go in for. And the placements are formal, they're competitive. In other situations, they allow me to pick the student for them because, they're too busy, or they just know the process and they know that I'll make good choices for them. So if you're one of those lucky ones that doesn't have to go to an interview, that'll remain to be seen. Next slide. Okay. So important to remember that because this is a process, it'll extend into the summer. I know people take vacations, both students take vacations, placement supervisors take vacations. I tried to get as many students placed before the end of June as possible because then we are running into holidays. Really important that you're always checking your Carleton email. So if you get accepted, or even if you're on the waiting list, keep checking your Carleton email because sometimes the turnaround time, it has to be quick. And if I don't hear from you, then you may lose a placement opportunity. Okay. There's also security checks that have to be done. I will let you know if that's the case with the organization that you end up going to. And again, those things have to be done right away. Otherwise, if you leave it go till the end of the summer, you may not start your placement until December, and then it doesn't work out well. Next slide. Okay, as I mentioned, the last couple of years, the expectations for placements has changed from. So I've found that students haven't been able to balance the placement with their work and everything they have going on in their life. This is more than just a regular course where you can, if you decide to not show up for a class, that's fine. You have to show up for your placement. And if doing a single credit placement should be manageable, you should be able to work that in with, part-time job and other volunteer opportunities. So you need to look at managing everything that you have going on. It's where you get into the 16-hour week placement, which there are a lot of organizations that take students for 16 hours a week. You need to be able to balance that with your part-time job and your volunteer activities in your other courses. If you can't do that, then you have to consider doing something else, because what I'm hearing from placement supervisors is that some students, when they go in there, they're not present. They're actually at their placement, but they're not present mentally, or they're doing working on coursework when they should be working on their work for the organization. So when you're looking at what you want to get out of this field placement course, it has to be at the very least that you're going to get a great reference moving on. If you get a job offer, that is at the top, and you're getting such valuable experience that is going to set you on a career path. I also write letters of reference for students. I do about at least 45 a year. And if you want a letter of reference from me, then you have to do well in your placement and your coursework. Let's see, and whether you get your first choice or your fourth choice, you have to be willing to put your best foot forward and get the experience in the field. If you're struggling, and I mean, to drop a placement partway through, it's really not, if you may be struggling. If you're struggling before you start the placement, then my suggestion is you drop the placement, because if you continue to struggle throughout the year with the placement, then it means that a placement organization loses a student that they were expecting to work for them for the school year and to get the experience. It's a two-way street. They're there to give you the experience, but you're also there to share your skills with them and to work for them, to be a good student, but also an employee, a volunteer employee. And if you take that seriously and put your best foot forward, I can guarantee that there are so many opportunities there, because as I had mentioned, the students at Carleton, we've been doing this for so long that we do have a reputation in the field for having great students. I know that the pandemic has changed things a lot for students, and that students have a hard time these days balancing things. But if you really, take that to heart and say that, this could be a life-changing opportunity for you, then you will be rewarded for you. I can guarantee that. And as I mentioned, you have to be patient with the process. All right, so just quickly, some of the things as we get into the school year. So you've been accepted, you're ready to start your placement. On the first day of placement, you're going to set up an agency student contract. And so that's, as I had mentioned, it's a two-way street. So the organization is going to say, okay, these are the tasks that you're going to work on throughout the school year. I'm going to help you to navigate that, to achieve those goals. And then you both sign the contract. In some cases, there's confidentiality agreements that you have to sign. And then both of you retain a copy of it because that's what you're going to be evaluated on. Next slide. You're evaluated twice during the year, so once in December and once in April, and it's worth 50% of your grade. And so you look at the evaluation that you get in December and you say, okay, what are the areas that I need to work on to improve? And then you have 4 months to do that for your next evaluation. Okay. And as I had mentioned about putting your best foot forward, you are representing Carleton and the criminology program. You need to conduct yourself professionally at all times, and doing that, following all of those guidelines about being professional will get you that great reference. But it also ensures that agencies will continue to hire students in years to come. And it also helps us to continue aiding you as the students in obtaining your practical experiences. So really, really important to embrace this experience. All right, over to Jillian.
Hey, thanks, Danette. So my name's Jillian. I'm the undergraduate administrator in the criminology program. I might have met with some of you before or emailed you before. I'm basically going to go over now how the field placement impacts your registration and your audit, how it contributes to program requirements, stuff like that. So, oh, 1 second. There we go. Okay, so to start off, CRCJ 3901, which is the main field placement course that all students register in who are participating in the field placement. It's the course that your classes attendance is attached to compared to the double placement course, which we'll discuss in a second. But CRCJ 3901 is that main course. It's a full year course and it's worth 1 credit towards your program requirements. So it requires registration in both the fall and winter terms, like any other full year course you might have taken. And to earn the 1 credit, students complete the seminar class and 192 hours of work at their agency from September to April. So that's at 8 hours a week. If you're doing the double placement, you're doing double the amount of hours with your agency. That means you also have to register in CRCJ 3902. That's the double placement course on top of CRCJ 3901. It's also a full year course. It's worth 1 credit as well. And it's to account for those additional hours you're working in terms of the academic credit you receive. So a very important thing when we're looking at registration and how these courses are going to sit on your audit is to make sure you check it. You can access your audit through Carleton Central if you never have. It can be a bit of a confusing document, so if you have questions about it, feel free to come in and ask us. And it's going to reflect the most up-to-date information about your progression through the program. And in this case specifically about making sure that you have space for the field placement, CRCJ 3901 and 3902 if needed within your program requirements. In terms of how these courses will sit, CRCJ 3901 is going to sit under a requirement within your major requirements that is most commonly referred to as 1.5 credits, and CRCJ are approved CCJ electives at the 3,000 level or higher. The amount of credits associated with it, that 1.5, may vary depending on which program you're in within criminology, but it's that CRCJ or approved CCJ electives at the 3,000 level or higher that you want to be looking at. That's where 3901 will count within your program requirements. And if you have any other courses already sitting there, and it would then exceed the allowed amount of credits, i.e. 1.5 credits, other courses will be pushed somewhere else in the audit, and you'll want to make sure they have somewhere else to go. So for CRCJ 3902, it's going to sit under what we call credits not included in the major CGPA, which is your elective requirements, as a CCJ related free elective. So there's two sections within your elective requirements. We are going to look at a screenshot of those in a second to get an idea of what that looks like. But it will sit under the second section, your free electives, because it's crim related and it can't sit under your non-crim related elective requirements. You want to make sure you do not exceed the maximum number of CCJ related electives allowed. If you're in the 20 credit program, that's 15 credits. And if you're in the 15 credit program, I believe it's 12.5 credits. If you are in doubt of how everything will sit, if you'll exceed those CCJ related courses, if things will need to be pushed around based off of your registration in 3901 and 3902, again, feel free to reach out to us, particularly if you're moving into fourth year standing. Typically, if the students are moving from second year to third year standing, they don't already have a number of courses sitting under these sections. It's possible, particularly if you have a lot of transfer credits or something like that, but definitely if you're potentially moving into fourth year standing going into next year, looking to take the placement, you might have already taken some courses sitting under these requirements, and meeting with us is a good way to ensure you then won't exceed credits or have things move where they're sitting excess to your degree and not counting. Okay, so here's a bit of a sample audit for where 3901 will sit. Ignore the number, so in this case, it's section number 9. Ignore that number in terms of looking for that specific one on your audit. Again, if you're in different program streams, different concentrations within our program, the numbers may vary slightly, but it's really to reflect how it contributes to that requirement. In this case, the requirement's worth 1.5 credits. CRCJ 3901 is sitting there as 1 credit. This student has no other courses that are meeting that requirement, so they still have a 0.5 credit left. And then this is how 3902 will sit. So you'll see it's the credits not included in the major CGPA. Again, those are your elective requirements. And there's 2 sections of it. The first one is where you have to have courses that are not criminology related. The second is free electives, which means they can be crim if you would like them to be. And you'll see here this student has the CRCJ 3902 double placement course sitting there alongside another CCJ approved elective. So that's where it will sit on your audit as well. Okay, so here we just have a bit of a sample schedule to kind of give you guys a visual representation of what it will look like to have the placement within your schedule. For a lot of times students, because it's not as standard or traditional of a course, it can be hard to understand how it will sit within the rest of your courses. In this case, I've based the schedule around like a law concentration, but where I've sort of input like laws 3xxx or 2xxx, you can sort of input your own concentration requirements if you have a concentration. And of course, this is also using a full course load, 2.5 credits per term. If you choose to reduce your course loads, that's totally fine. This is just sort of an example to show how you'll see 3901 is taking up a 0.5 credit in your fall term and a 0.5 credit in your winter term to create the full 1 credit. So if you're doing a full course load, you're taking 4 other courses alongside it. This is the same thing, but with 3902 added. Again, I've done it based off a full course load. If you reduce your course load, it will be slightly different, and this is a sociology concentration. So keep that in mind. It's more so, again, to show how it sits in every spot. So you have the 3901 and 3902, each taking up a 0.5 credit in fall and then in winter as well for the full 2 credits. So if you're doing a full course load, you take 3 other courses alongside your double placement in both fall and winter. Okay, so talking a little bit about prerequisites. If you are like a 4th year student, you've been in the program a little longer or know anyone a little older in the program, you might know that previously with the field placement, We used to have a different set of prerequisites based off the core major 1000 and 2000 level courses. With the program changes we made this past May 2024, with the addition of mind and behavior and the option to major in criminology without a concentration. Not all of those requirements remained the same. So we changed what is needed in terms of prerequisites. There are no longer specific courses needed as prerequisites. You simply need to have minimum third-year standing in order to be able to participate. The only exceptions where this may come up is if certain types of course background could be helpful for placement. So like with something with law offices, Danette may want to know that you've taken Laws 2301 or 2302 in order to participate. But that's the only time where you may see something like that come up. In terms of actual eligibility for the field placement, it's just the third-year standing and that you're in good standing within your own program, i.e. you're meeting your CGPA requirements. Okay, so as Danette mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation, the major CGPA is what we use for the group of students who are being accepted based solely off the major CGPA, not the group of students that are randomized. The major CGPA, if you want to know where it is on your audit, it's the second CGPA you'll come across. So if you're scrolling through your audit, there's your first CGPA that comes up, and that's overall, that's for all 20 or 15 credits in your program. And your major CGPA will be the second one that comes up. It's next to where I've highlighted here, where it says major requirements, and it specifies like concentration if you're in one. And it's the number that I've highlighted above. So the one below, that's 6.5, that's the CGPA requirement within the major CGPA for the 20 credit program, not the 15. And the one right above that is this student in this case, but your specific CGPA that you would enter on the application. If you make any mistakes when you're entering your CGPA on the application, let's say you accidentally put the overall or something like that, don't worry about it. As Danette mentioned, we review all the applications that come in. So unless there's an error, let's say in your phone number or something like that, which we wouldn't know, any of your academic information, we go through and make sure everything's correct. As well, we wait till winter grades come in, so those update anyway once that happens. So we make sure that's all right. So if you do make any errors when inputting that into the application itself, don't worry about it. You don't need to resubmit. You don't even need to let us know. We'll review it and make sure everything's accurate before beginning reviewing them for the purposes of sending out acceptances. Okay, so it looks like we're at questions now. So thank you, everyone. I am going to stop the recording, and then if anyone has any questions, we can get into that.